Hi, my name is Lydia Gomez, and I will be presenting on the tipping point, the 3 rules of epidemics. Before we start the presentation on the three rules of epidemics, let's take a moment to recognize the author. Malcolm Gladwell is an English-born Canadian journalist. He is a best-selling author and a well-known speaker. Gladwell's themes are centered on finding anticipated insinuations of investigations of the social sciences. His works are known for revealing the reality concealed behind strange data. In 2005, he was named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell follows trends from the beginning to end. It tries to discover why some ideas tip and others do not. To start off, Gladwell provides the 3 distinct characteristics of epidemics, which are contagiousness, the fact that little causes can have big effects, and that change happens not gradually but at one dramatic moment. So what exactly is the tipping point? According to Gladwell, the tipping point can ultimately be defined as that magical moment when an idea, trend, or social behavior crosses, spreads, or tips like wildfire. So in Chapter 1, the 3 rules of epidemics are introduced. Gladwell names the 3 rules of epidemics in his own unique language. He calls them the law of the few, the stickiness factor, and the power of context. These 3 rules of epidemics provide a direction for how to go about reaching a tipping point. In the chapter, Gladwell uses an outbreak of syphilis in Baltimore, Maryland that took place in the mid-90s to illustrate the 3 rules in details. He points out that an idea can tip from any of several directions. However, for each situation, any one rule may carry more weight than others may. The central thesis of the tipping point states that ideas, behaviors, messages, and products are often spread like outbreaks of an infectious disease. So in detail, the 3 rules of epidemics are, again, the law of the few, which means that a handful of exceptional people can create a dramatic change. Within this rule applies the 80-20 principle, which basically means that a tiny percentage of people do the majority of the work. An example that can be seen in the first chapter in regards to the syphilis outbreak is that the few poor and affected people who used drugs moved to new places, carrying the disease with them. The second rule is the stickiness factor. In essence, it states that the medium is the message, meaning that how a message is formatted bears on its impact, or in other words, stickiness. It is also memorable. Therefore, the example that is shown in the first chapter again is the disease itself had caused clinics to close out and more people were being infected due to the lack of care available. And the third rule of epidemics is the power of context, which notes that an epidemic is sensitive to the conditions and circumstances of the times and places in which it occurs. An example from the first chapter is the addictive drug. In this case, it was crack. It changed the environment of the city, which caused the disease to tip. And in this slide, I included a an illustration of the 3 rules of epidemics, each explained from a different standpoint. How does this chapter apply to human resources and to healthcare? In regards to human resources, managers should be able to lead their teams of employees. If this is carried out with efficiency or effectiveness, then there will be a noticeable difference in productivity. And if employee retention can be made possible through applying the concept of the stickiness factor, this means that if words of encouragement are spread throughout the company, employees will feel that they are a valuable asset to the organization and be motivated to carry out their tasks successfully. In regards to healthcare, after having read about the outbreak of syphilis in Baltimore, it is safe to say that it can be considered more of a public health issue. However, it goes hand in hand with healthcare when dealing with such epidemics or diseases. However, Gladwell mentions the study carried out by the CDC, which identified the causes of the epidemic and eventually developed a solution to end the epidemic. In the long run, it would have made advances in healthcare as to how the disease would be treated in the future. For the exercise, it will be focused on the law of the few. For this exercise, you will create a list of 15 to 20 people you know that you consider to be your circle of friends. This will not include any family members and or coworkers. You will then go through the list and backwards track any people that are responsible for that connection until you reach an individual that is ultimately responsible for that connection. You will repeat the process for all the people on your list. What do you see? The takeaway would be that studying an epidemic requires concentrating resources in a few key areas. In order to make sense of social epidemics, we must first understand that human communication has its own set of unusual and counterintuitive rules. We must also keep in mind that with the slightest push in the right place, the world can be tipped. And in conclusion, Gladwell's The Tipping Point requires that we reframe the way we think about the world. It challenges us to look beyond our intuition and focus on the resources on a few key areas. This finalizes my presentation. Thank you for watching.